Speaking of memes, actually, do you know who our next contender is?
Yes, we've got Cricketot and Cricketoon. Whenever I talk about crickets, what I usually tell people is if you ever want to piss someone off, release crickets into their room, because a lot of people think they're annoying when they're alive and they smell really bad when they're dead. Crickets in general are like egg. I like crickets. I like the sound. Most people don't. I don't know. I don't have much to say about crickets unless someone has a question about crickets. They're an important feeder insect for a lot of people. They're actually, well, I guess I could talk here. Crickets are kind of the model insect for entomophagy. What entomophagy is the practice of eating insects or just eating insects. One raw grasshopper is your entire daily protein intake. When you cook things like crickets and grasshoppers, a lot of the protein actually leaves the body because, you know, liquids turn into gases, whatever, and you're mostly just left. Right. You're mostly just left with the exoskeleton afterwards. So if you want the most protein value out of crickets and grasshoppers, you have to eat them raw. I think it's a good introductory insect if you're going to get into entomophagy. Don't jump into the tarantulas right away. Start with a cricket, a grasshopper. That's what I have to say about crickets and grasshoppers, model entomophagy bugs. What do you think about their in-game utility?
So, like, I mean, Cricketot, I'm not even gonna bother with that just because the stats are really low. I like him because he's cute and he kind of like has like this weird Saturn thing around his neck. Cricketoon, on the other hand, other than the shit posts and memes, such as the Maria one, like he doesn't really have that.
Metronome?
I mean, he does carry metronomes, yeah. So that's actually in like DPP, like trying to thief a metronome off of them is a valid tactic because they just have an early game. I mean, he doesn't really get any moves. His stat pool is kind of bad. Great starter Pokemon. You're just gonna outgrow. I like the design. He's fancy. In terms of Cricketoon, because he has Swarm and Technician. He does get Technician, which is actually super niche. 85 attacks, nothing to scoff at. It's not the best. Swords Dance, X Scissor, Brick Break, so you can take care of screens, Night Slash, Brand, or Taunt. I mean, that speed stat is not really doing you wonders with that 65.
Austin asks, do all crickets sound similar, or is there an actual delele whoop out there? Beginner's Guide to... What did it say? Beginner's Guide to Song Identification. Songs of insects. We've got the chirp. We've got the trill. We've got the lisp. We've got the zip. We've got cisp, we've got lispy trill, and rattle. I don't think there is any real world parallel to delele whoop, unfortunately. I think most of it is like chirping sounds. I don't know where I'm gonna put them in my F tier.
To be fair, the delele whoop is like, should put it in like B, and I might actually escalate it to B because of that, like now I'm thinking about it. Like design-wise and utility-wise is where my bias comes in, and it just doesn't. I would not actively go for a Cricketoon, and that's like my issue. The memes it has are like A/S tier. Utility and everything else, I can't justify it.
There was an attempt to replicate like the EV like variations. I just think it fell really flat. Unfortunately, I wish it didn't, but Burmy and Wurmple are not as exciting, I think, as EV for most people. And again, we win over bagworms. You know, I think this is a more accurate bagworm than, say, Pineco, because we're seeing, like, the actual detritus that the bagworms are building with.
Yeah, have you not seen that?
What is it?
The different cloaks have subtypes. So obviously you have Wormadam, which is, like, the leaf cloak. But it's, like, the way that it's labeled is Wormadam hyphen Sandy, right? For the ground type cloak where it's using, you know, rocks and stuff. Or for the trash one, it's Wormadam hyphen trash. I mean, it doesn't have. We're just going with more. I'm gonna check Motham in a second because I think there's a little bit more to that one specifically. Like it has anticipation, which is kind of cool. You know, a pink bat would be a good team supporter, and you have played correctly. So it's gonna have a high skill ceiling. You got to know what you're doing effectively. Stealth Rock, Gyro Ball, Toxic Protect. I mean, you're looking at, it's got sassy nature. You're making sure to play defensive with this. Like, there's better options for less, what do you call it? Less time investment, less skill investment. You arguably need to know what you're doing here. Looks like my loaded partners with that pretty good. Exquisite by any means. I'm gonna look at Mothim really fast. Thoughts on Mothim really quick?
Even Mothim's going to be like probably a high D tier. I think I would put most of the Burmy and Wormadams in F tier.
Crippling 4 times weakness to Stealth Rock. It's why you'll switch in a Charizard needs his HP. Almost unviable in competitive team. His kills it. Coupled with his paper thin defenses, so combo weakness. Yeah, no, you're not. You're gonna get him in. You're gonna try to sweep, or you just don't play him. Mothim outclassed by Venomoth. Venomoth still is just being an absolute fucking unit. How do we want to rate these 7 entries so we can just get them out of the way?
I made a separate tier for them that's called An Attempt Was Made. I don't think that they're lower than F tier, but it's just like a special part of F tier where it's like, this was a concept. Like, I wish I could like it. I really want to like it, but I can't.
I'm gonna put it below F, not trash tier. Like, I'm looking at this, I'm gonna make untiered. Like, and that's not necessarily a cop-out. It's like all of these fall into like one slot. And you're right. I think you do say that incredibly well. It's like An Attempt Was Made here.
All right. So should we dig in?
Absolutely. We have. Let's finish up Gen 4 with what we do have so far. Let us start with the B line. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so first up, we've got Combee, and that evolutionary line turns into Vespiquen. So, I mean, granted, this is like all fantasy game design, but I do love Combee and Vespiquen. I think these are arguably some of my favorite bug-type Pokemon, maybe because my first gen was Gen 4. But I guess I can talk a little bit about honeybees here and like things specific to honeybees. Okay, I hope this doesn't ruin honey for you, but I found out that there are some honeybees that can and will eat meat, and that goes into their honey. But now I'm really curious as to what like honey made from animal meat tastes like. And animal meat can range from, you know, actual mammal to like insects. You can also get colored honey. So most of the times it's food dye. Or I guess I missed this when we talked about wasps, but you can get wasp nests made, like colorful wasp nests, if you provide the wasps with like colored paper. And this is specifically for like paper wasps because they like wood, and you know wood is technically paper. Yada yada. Paper's made from trees.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, logical. Putting the logical track out there. And actually, I'll show what this looks like. It's actually really pretty. Let's see. Paper wasp colorful. I mean, look at these. These are. It looks like cereal. I want to eat it. I know a tiny bit about bee and wasp vision, more so bee vision, but some of the running theories right now is that flower colors, they do look different to bees, but it's kind of like some of them have kind of like a landing zone. Take a look at like a pansy. Some of the theory about like how this flower reproduces is that the color pattern looks like kind of like a landing zone for any sort of pollinators. Granted, the goal of bees is really to get the nectar, not necessarily to pollinate. And that happened to be like a happy byproduct of it. Here's a female honeybee, and all worker bees are female. And this little orange sac on her leg here is called the corbicula, Corbicula. And this is how they store pollen. These are ones where they lose their stinger because it's kind of like a barb, right? And it sticks in your skin.
And then as far as the aerodynamics, that was the last thing really that I wanted to ask about and inquire about, because that seems to be a little bit of a weird one with bees and how they fly.
So yeah, this is a better explanation than anything I can do. But here, the air swirls at the edge of the bee's wings, so that it can angle its wings towards the sky, and that helps move the air over the wing.
So Vespiquen is not really anything to write home about. I mean, and having gone through the battle tree in both Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, I remember specifically there was a team with the Vespiquen in there with attack and defend order, 3 signature moves, 2 base stats over 100. Yes, it's defense and special defense, so it's a pretty bulky Pokemon. Stands among the herd of forgettable flying types in Yu-Gi-Oh! That's always a good sign, saying it stands out in the forgettable flying types. It does get, it has pressure as an ability, has roost, which is always one of my favorite moves in the game, where you lose your flying type for the turn, you're landing to regain health. Where would you rate the Combee line?
My personal feelings on Vespiquen and Combee, I think I would put Vespiquen either high C tier or low B tier. And Combee would obviously be at the bottom of, not the bottom, either like the top of the next lowest tier or the bottom of that same tier.
I think Combee makes F tier for me specifically, just because it's forgettable. It's only a stepping stone on the way to Vespiquen.
I'm putting my Vespiquen in C tier.
I think mine goes in C because, like, everything I'm looking around it, like based Beedrill, if you will, Fortress, Shit Ninja, Armaldo. It's kind of in that same thing of I want them to work and I see their potential, but they just don't.
Well, I wanted to bring out a special guest as we talk about Scorupi. So Anuxunamoon is a flat rock scorpion. I'm just gonna.
It would be named Anuxunamoon. That's amazing.
Yeah, so she's named after the mummy, the female mummy. And she's actually one of the least venomous types of scorpion in the world. A rule of thumb for scorpions is the bigger the claws, the weaker the venom they have. That doesn't always apply, but it's just kind of like a general, if you see a scorpion in the wild, look at its claws to see, you know, how potentially dangerous it could be. And so her venom's super weak. And part of the reason for that is if you have really big claws that can crush your prey easily, you don't really need a stinger to immobilize your prey. You can just crush it with your claws. Scorpions shed their skin to grow. And so I have her skin right here to show up.
That is so metal.
Yeah. And so here's one of the claws. So you can kind of see how big the claws are. Most of the time, though, what I do is I try to be respectful of how my animals are feeling. You do have to kind of get outreach animals used to being handled and in public presence, especially around like loud noises, around kids, in different environments, because it can be really stressful for the animal. The reason I put her back is I've got all these bright lights on, and she's, you know, it's like dark in some places, and then some places there's like these bright white lights, like my ring light, and she's like, I don't know how I feel about this. Another thing is you may hear of people removing scorpion stingers, and I highly advise against that sort of thing. I do think it's animal cruelty to do that. It is animal abuse to remove a scorpion stinger. That's a part of their body. It's a part of what they need to survive. Just because you have a big scorpion too doesn't mean they don't use their stinger. Like, they can still use it on their prey. It's just a much weaker venom, right? Yeah. But again, that's weaker to us as humans, as large predators. That doesn't mean that it's weaker to the insect it's being used on it. Their eyes are on top of their head, and part of the reason for that is, so scorpions, right? We talked about how, like, my flat rock scorpion, she likes to hide under things. That's most scorpions. Most scorpions try to hide away. Oops, my pop filter keeps coming down. They try to hide away, right, during the daytime. It gets hot. There's predators, etc. And so their eyes are on the top of their head, not only to see predators, but also to sense light and dark. That's the main function of scorpion eyes, because they can't see like you and I can. Their vision is extremely bad. I have mated scorpions before, and actually one of our larger scorpions in the US, I mated a pair, and their mating ritual is called a promenade. Scorpion mating dance. Yeah, so here's what it looks like when scorpions are mating. The male grabs onto the female and kind of guides her around in a dance. And also you can see their mouth parts are interlocked in this video too, which I think is kind of cool. Most people have never seen a scorpion's mouth parts up close, but it's almost, they have basically claws for mouth parts, like another set of claws.
Dropping on stats are kind of cool, actually. Like, it has a lot of defense, which goes on, with a really hard carapace. Battle armor, Pokemon can't be struck with critical hits. That's kind of cool. Keen Eye can't be lowered, ignoring their evasive. Can't be lowered and ignores their evasive stats. So if, say, you have a chance here mouth that minimizes, technically Keen Eye is gonna say no. I can still see you. It's going. I don't even know where to put this. It's going B tier for me. Yeah, it's going with It's gonna go with based Metapod, Venomoth.
I'm gonna put, so for me, Scroopy's standing in place of the entire evolutionary line. Yeah. So I think mine goes in A tier somewhere. I think, okay, that was one of the Pokemon I was most excited to get to today. Why am I forgetting the name of the next one?
It is going to be Yanmega.
Oh, Yanmega, sorry. That was easy. Dragonflies we got to with Yanma. So I don't know how much I want to add. It looks like an airplane, even more so than Yanma. This one's got windows.
I mean, in terms of competitive, Frisk is cool. I mean, you swap on in, you get to take a sneak peek at an item and doubles. It'll do a random item. Speed boost, obviously, is what a lot of people go for. It's base 95 speed. It's Rayquaza speed tier as well. This is when we're starting to really see bug types kind of, come into their own, right? Because we're at the end of Gen 4. Yanmega is the last of Gen 4. I think it's kind of cool though, and it kind of hits this weird C if not D tier vibe for me, because even though it's kind of usable in certain things, it's I forget it exists.
Well, I think I'm ready to rank Yanmega. I think it goes in D tier for me.
I think so too, yeah.
I think it goes in front of. Oh gosh. Masquerain.
Yeah, I can
but that's still bottom of D tier for me.
Yanma and Yanmega are both in D tier for me. That's wild.
Yanma's in F tier.